making. First, let me do the big thing. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely, the talented Caitlin Higdon. So this is Rose's granddaughter, so if you see this head floating around, you know who it is. Caitlin, this is actually Caitlin, your second time cooking, isn't it?
Yeah.
The last time you were here cooking, what happened?
I don't know.
Nothing, because you were perfect.
Last time she said she would never do it again.
Okay, I need Ro hot here. We're working on Ro. Ladies and gentlemen, Ro Morris, cookbook author, restaurateur, teacher. She taught,
Mimi.
and now a Mimi.
Mimi. Yeah.
Hang on a second while we get your mic going. Should be able to go.
Almost 6 times.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
There she is.
Okay.
2000, because Carla said that was her first year, or
2005.
2004.
Yeah.
Carla was a student in 2004.
Yes.
I come and helped. I was actually
At the
passing out the
culinary
food.
department in
Carla
the
was
college
in the culinary
here.
department, and she was about like this girl's little, just all, I want to help. And now here Carla is, a master
Carla was
chef.
never like that. She
Oh,
was born
So
knowing
this goes
more than I
back-
do.
And then Rose's husband,
Gary.
said that
Yes.
we needed to cook.
Yes.
And paired up this lovely lady with my furry face. And we put on demonstrations, and then we added more people in. And now here we are. The cooking
Yes.
show is always a very exciting part of the Real Women's Expo. And we brought her back. She's representing Banks Market and all the
Yes.
fun things. So, ladies, would you please give a big round of applause
Yay.
for Mrs. Ro Morris?
The reason I know it was 2005 is I told Gary at the time, I will do this for 5 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He died in 2010, so it's easy for me to count how long it was. They were talking earlier, when was that exactly? And so that's how long, and I think Caitlin came 2 years ago. And when we did this, she and I both said, we will never do that again. It looks so easy, and it's not easy. And these folks, Carla and David, when Carla was my student in the culinary department at the college, and I'm not just saying this because she's standing here, I say it all the time, she knew more than I did. I learned more from her than she ever learned from me. And when she did her, like an internship, or what was it called?
Yeah, my co-op.
Her co-op. She went to Artisan Kitchen, and now she and David co-own Artisan Kitchen and Shandy's. It's an amazing story. So it was a natural who would do this, and so it's been fun to watch. Okay. Today we're making a version of corned beef and cabbage, and it's a much more, for lack of a better term, user-friendly version of corned beef and cabbage. You can use like those crescent rolls, those Pillsbury crescent rolls, if you don't want to make homemade yeast dough. How many of you make homemade bread? Okay. You all would be the ones that might make the dough and spread it out about this size and then roll this mixture up in it and bake it. And I am thrilled that you will do that. For the rest of us, we have 2 easy options. This is the cold version today, and for the green for St. Patty's Day, we're using a spinach tortilla shell like this. A wrap is, I guess, the official word. And we're making a sauce that we have some recipes here, and I'll just tell you this now so you'll know. Every week we do a recipe. We've been doing this for like 25 years for Banks Market, the recipe of the week, the Banks Market recipe of the week. Well, it's called Ethel's Corned Beef, Cabbage, and corned beef and cabbage. And it's a lady. Did any of you know Ethel Wolfenden? She was big into birds, and she was she was from the Northeast. Anybody know Ethel? Okay, good. You know, this is her recipe, and I use it in all 3 of my books. And we make corned beef 2 or 3 times a year, and this is what we use. And you cook it in a kind of a rich red wine, and it cooks all day. And Carla's going to tell you how we're going to season this. We have all kinds of seasoning that go into it that make it very special. Matter of fact, this is it right here. For those of you, I don't know, do we have a camera up there? Can
right
see
up above
this.
your head.
This is what we cooked. This I got at Banks Market in the deli. This deli, really, really, really thin, is probably better for this roll-up. If you're cooking corned beef and cabbage, though, this is the way to go. And you just get the corned beef. You rinse it off in cold water. You know, it comes in a package with those seasonings. You can use those if you want, but Ethel's mixture is a whole bunch better. So Carla's going to tell you what we do to keep the peppercorns and the cloves from getting out into, we're just going to do this in a crock pot. She used to use a pressure cooker. We don't use a pressure cooker. We just use I'm about to eat this, Joey. Is it okay? Okay. We just use a slow cooker, and we cook this about 5 or 6 hours. The corned beefs usually run 2 to 3 pounds each. Like I said, you rinse them off in cold water. It's really important to rinse them off. Then you just put them in the crock pot, cover them with this dark red wine. If they're not totally covered with the wine, depending on the size of your crock pot, the thickness of the corned beef, then you can add a little bit of water to it. And then what we're going to put in it, just so you'll know what you're eating today, we do an onion, quartered, dry mustard, garlic powder, ginger, some apple cider, and a little bit of sea salt, nutmeg. And then for the, I'm going to have to go back here. My nose is dripping. Would you tell them about this real quick? Okay, be right back.
Yeah. How many of y'all have ever heard of a bouquet garnier? It's where you put your herbs and stuff inside of your cheesecloth or anything like that. That's what you're going to do here instead of having to pick out all the black peppercorns after you're done or anything you don't want to pick out. This works really, really well. They usually say start out with like 3 layers of it. You can get this back in your kitchen section. It's usually like in a little plastic package hanging up with all your doohickeys and gadgets and things like that. Something else you can do that I find out that I always don't have this right when I need it at home and everything. At work we might have a bolt of it or something, but usually I don't. Okay, am I good? Okay. Don't have it at home. So one trick that I've learned is
lots of tricks. Don't let her fool you. She is full of tricks and wisdom.
You can also catch goldfish and minnows with it too if you need to.
Yes, you can. Is master of necessities pretty much what this was. Everybody that's ever gone to like Walmart or something like that have seen like the little clear plastic eggs with the knee-highs. They're like 4 and 5 for $1. You can use those to put all your herbs and bouquet garnier on, tie the knot on it, throw it in. They're super cheap, easy to do. Works out really, really well. And people want to know why you're pulling out this big old knee-high out of your soup pot and everything like that. But it does. It works out really, really good. And those are easy to have on hand.
Unused and new.
Yeah. Don't use used ones. Or take an idea to use one of your husband's old socks. But those work out really good. But what you'll do is you'll put any of your herbs and spices. If you want to do whole pieces of rosemary and everything, you can tie it together.
Or whole cloves of garlic.
Yes, whole cloves of garlic. And just dump it down in here. You can tie it, or if you got loose stuff, all you do is just put it in the center. And what I would recommend is like having a little cup or something to set this down in to make you a little kind of divot. And then you'll just put all your measured stuff, like your peppercorns, your cloves, and then you just tie it off. Is all you have to do, which is kitchen twine. You can use a thick rubber band as well. Just make sure it's a new one. Don't use an old one because then you don't want your stuff to taste like a rubber band. And then you just drop it down in.
I cheated and tied a knot when I did this yesterday. So.
And then afterwards you could always use it to what? As a sachet in your lingerie.
This is not a trick you want to try, unless you want anybody who visits you to never come back again because of the smell.
Leave this laying out on your counter and see how many people crinkle their nose and ask what this is. That would be the fun part right there.
Okay, so that stays in the whole time. That way you don't have floating peppercorns and cloves, in your mixture. One thing that I found that really makes this an easier recipe is you put all those things together, and then about an hour before it's out, the bags at Banks Market of the shredded cabbage, thinly shredded cabbage. I just dump that in there, and then it gets all those wonderful flavors, and you can take a slotted spoon and just pull it all out and set it aside, and it'll look kind of like, I don't know, can they see this, Joe? This is what's left over. Okay, so it's all shredded and seasoned. So now here we're going to assemble this because they need to start putting the sauce on your samples. We take a sauce and it's made, and you'll have these ingredients. Really simple, 3 ingredients. It's just cream cheese, and we had to run out a few minutes ago and get some more so we could have some extra sauce. So we got that in a tub that's already softened. Doesn't matter, you're getting ready to whip it anyway. And some horseradish and some spicy brown mustard. That's all there is to it, and it's in a wonderful sauce you're about to see in just a few minutes. So you take that sauce, and we're gonna pretend like it's like glue. And we're going to take it, and we're gonna put it all over our spinach wrap, like this. Do you have this, Joe? Okay, I can't see what they're seeing. So it's like glue. And we're gonna put it on here. Then we're gonna put our really thin layer of corned beef. I need my gloves on, but my hands are so clean, I think it's okay. Thin layers, very important. So I'm using this is their deli corned beef at Banks Market. If you are not a fan of corned beef, if you'd rather do a thin sliced ham or turkey or even chicken, or even mince up some crab meat or shrimp or whatever, this is one of those recipes, leaving out the cabbage, that is a really good appetizer to serve. Okay, so first we do this. Then we're going to take, and I'm just going to use my fingers here. This has onions and everything in it. It calls for sauerkraut, but I cooked my cabbage because I like it a whole lot better than that real pickly flavor of sauerkraut. And then just Swiss cheese. It's very important that everything you're using here is like room temperature, because we're going to roll it and we don't want it to fall apart. I've taken this before and heated it in the oven after I've cut it into rolls, and it's really, really good that way. But we're serving it cold today. You know, it's nice to have an appetizer that you can make ahead and then just pull it out of the refrigerator and serve. This is one of those. So we're going to take this. If you have some parchment paper or wax paper or even a cloth and you have it underneath, you can actually make it tighter if you kind of pull it up over it. Do you do it that way?
Yes.
When you're rolling? We're not doing that now. We're doing all the shortcuts to show you how easy this is. Now, I should have left the end part over here with just the glue, the sauce, and it's going to be sticking out, so I'm going to have to cut that out. Otherwise, it's going to be hanging out of the end. Make this as tight as I can possibly make it. Then I'm going to take my kitchen shears. This is kind of our art one that we wash in the dishwasher. It's very clean now. Cut it off. And then just put this in the refrigerator. And when you do that, it all firms up and gets nice and cold and kind of easy to cut. So what I'm going to do then, what you all are going to be getting in a few minutes, these are the samples right here for the rest of us to eat behind the curtain. So I'll put that over here. But you hold this so that you don't smash it flat. You actually hold it together. And you have a cool little ring like this. Then I took my sauce, and I kind of doubled the recipe from this. And I cut a hole, and the hole's really too big on here. And I put it in here, and I'm going to pipe it out just on top like that. Just really simple. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this back so they can pipe this on each one of your samples. Would you take that to them, Katie, please? And that's what you're going to have. So that is our Reuben roll-up. You can use sauerkraut, but be sure to drain it. But I like this so much better. And when you get the cabbage already shredded, also another trick for you is when you are at Banks Market, ask for them in the deli to cut your meat, whatever it is for this particular recipe, really thin, like as thin as they can get it. Even if it's falling apart, that's better than if it's thick, because when you try to roll that thick meat, it just won't work. So does anybody have any questions? Really simple recipe. You can do as many versions of this as you want. The one with a crescent, how many of you use those Pillsbury refrigerated crescent rolls for lots of things? I know, it's really handy to have. We do cinnamon and butter and then roll them up in the morning sometimes for when we don't have anything else. But yeah, and she likes to put cheese in hers. So anyway, if you take that and you put them all together and you make kind of like a rectangle like this cutting board, and you put all these ingredients and then roll it up and then slice it and then bake it, I think it's 400 degrees, just until it's kind of brown. It's really, really good. So That's really our recipe. How many of you cook corned beef for holidays or something special? It's amazing how many people, 3 different people walked up to me just while I was preparing this. You know, it was not very long before this started, and told me that they had corned beef at Christmas or at Thanksgiving. And I never thought of that. We think of corned beef on St. Patrick's Day, and you know, that's not really an Irish dish.
No.
When they,
Don't
when
break
many
the
of
dream. Don't break the dream for me.
No,
Come
but it's
on.
really awesome. When the Irish came into our country,
Yeah.
especially in New York City is where I've heard it began, it was one of the most inexpensive meats, something that many of them that were very poor could only afford this. And they would make the corned beef, pickle it, and the corn comes from the granules of salt, where like salt kernels, and they would pickle it and preserve it like for a long period of time. We've come a long way since then. They would, those original immigrants that came here would be really in shock that now we use it for holiday meals, wouldn't they? So, what were you going to say, Bear? I can tell you're about to say something.
I'm getting ready to ask if anybody has any questions for
Okay.
you. Anybody have a question?
About anything. It doesn't have to be about corned beef.
I do have one myself.
Oh, dear.
Does anybody here have trouble with sulfites giving them headaches and everything? They have to stay away from like red wine and things because of the sulfites that are in
And
it.
corned beef.
Yeah, and corned beef, which has got it. They are now actually getting a little bit more sensitive to that, and they're making it without the sulfites is a choice as well too. So if some of y'all have shied away from it for a long time, and if y'all are get brave in the kitchen sometime, try to make your own corned beef. It's amazing the difference in flavor. It tastes so much more fresh and everything with all your herbs and spices that you put in with it. And it makes an excellent dish. To me, corned beef is great to play around with as sandwiches, as a side dish, as a melt. Because this right here, you can do a layer casserole with it as well too.
Yes, absolutely.
With the cabbage and everything. Soup, instead of doing the corned beef and cabbage, you can make a corned beef cabbage soup as well with the same ingredients. Makes it a little bit easier too. So, but no, if the sulfites give you some problems, you can start looking around for it. They do make it without it now, or you can make it yourself.
Honestly, when you rinse it really, really well, it certainly doesn't take away all of those.
It helps a lot.
But it helps a lot because you see in the bag, you know, all the juices and everything, and you'll notice there's a lot of fat on that cut of meat. It's an inexpensive cut of meat. And honestly, when you buy it, you're paying for as much fat as you are paying for meat itself. And I cut a lot of that fat off, and Carl would go, "Don't you do that," because that's where the flavor is.
How many of y'all ever bought that for the first time, and then you cook it, and you open up your pot, and it's like the size of your fist, and you think, I cannot feed my whole family this little piece of meat.
Like this. But there is, in flavor, there's really no comparison. Ethel's recipe right here that I'm going to share with you all, we have some copies. We don't have 100 of them. But if you go to banksmarket.com and go down to Rose Recipes, that's going to be my recipe this week. So,
Any questions?
do you all like that? It is good, isn't it? And some people that think corned beef, don't think so. Caitlin, when we were driving here, we were talking about what we were going to fix, and she looked at me like a deer in the headlights. She said, "Okay." And then she tasted it back here, and she said, "Oh."
Did you like it,
I'm
Caitlin?
surprised. Oh, she says no. I thought you liked it.
I wasn't supposed to ask.
Oh, well, she's not a big meat eater. So what can I say?
The one question I have is,
Yes.
if you put the lime in the coconut and shake them both together, does that really work?
Absolutely, Bear. You told me it did, so I believe that it does.
Anybody else? Anything else you want to share, Ro?
I just want to tell you this. Those of you totally unrelated to food, totally.
Alright.
Those of us who have colored our hair, it's almost all women here. You know, most
Mine's
of you have done
natural,
that.
as you can tell.
Yes. Most of you have at some time or another colored your hair. I colored my hair for 35 years. And the last year I decided that I was not going to color my hair anymore. And I thought at some point, so for about a year, you can just go take a walk if you want to.
I'm getting the prize.
I wanted to
you
grow
just keep
up and
talking,
have hair
lovely.
like you, Bear. So
you
anyway,
just keep talking.
I decided that at some point in my future, I was going to, you know, see what was really under here. So last year I started getting those cans of brown hairspray. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? That you touch up, you've seen it advertised. Okay, so I was finding that I was getting a can of that every week because the roots kept getting longer and longer and longer. Then one day, I post on westkentuckystar.com. Do y'all know what that is? It's a 24/7 news site. Bristol Broadcasting that does this expo, that's their website. So I still do that from home sometimes. Well, this one night, I went in, took a shower, washed my hair, and you know how when you get out of the shower, the window, the mirror's all steamed up and you can't see anything. So I went in, sat down with the towel around my hair, posted a little bit on Star, came back and took the towel off my hair, and I went, oh my goodness, there was about that much of this, and then brown, like this. And I thought, oh, I gotta get my can. So I dried my hair, I got my can, and it was empty. I thought, oh dear, I guess I'll get a ball cap and go to the pharmacy and get me a can of the hairspray. Well, I thought, no, you've been going to do this for a really long time. And those of you that have known me all my life have always known me with hair like this. And so I thought, this is the day. So I went down and sat in front of my laptop. And those of you that ever work on your computer, you know how you can kind of see your reflection in the laptop? And I had some scissors similar to this, sitting over here with my pens and notes. I took it out and I looked in my laptop and I went everywhere where the gray stopped and the brown started and cut it all off. I haven't had short hair since I was 5. And I went into deep depression for about a week. I wouldn't go out, it was cold, and I thought, I'm just gonna wear a hat, and I thought, no, I'm not a hat wearer, I'm not gonna wear a hat. So I got used to it. The reason I'm telling you this whole long story is it is so freeing to not color your hair. And I'm not telling you not to cover it. You're way too young. I'm 67, and it was time for me. Now, my mother colored her hair till she was 90. But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. So if anybody's thinking about doing it, the spray works for a little while, and then at some point, you just got to go for it. But I wanted to share that with you since we were with a bunch of women today.
And it looks amazing.
And I see a lot of women that have done what I've done. Maybe you've always done this. My mom, when she did it at 90, it took her like 2 years, and she did it with her stylist at her salon. So it was a very gradual process, and it was very methodical, and there was a formula for what you do between here and there. And she did it very gracefully. She had like 2 weddings with grandchildren during that period of time, so she had to look good. And but it's very freeing. And so I see a lot of hair like Bear and myself out there. I want to encourage you.
Cooking tips and fashion tips with Ro. It's a fashion show, too.
Well, this is the Women's Expo. So
That's
right.
Right. Straight for us women.
Yeah,
right?
we can talk about these things.
That's why I'm just being quiet, sitting over here, letting you do your thing.
I've told Caitlin's mother, who has beautiful hair like this and is turning 40 this year. I can say that because she's not here. But I told her, I said, she has a few blonde hairs. She has long, beautiful hair. And I've said, learn from me. Don't do anything to it. And so it's going to be interesting to see if she decides to go the route of the brown or just let Mother Nature take over. So.
Ladies, how about a hand for Caitlin and Ro Morris?
Thank you all.
And I got something for Caitlin, too. You did such an excellent job helping your
Thank you for coming out.
Oh, I love it, Bear. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for
coming out. And Banks Market, thank you all for the awesome food all the time. I mean, I'm in there all the time. Every now and then I'll be someplace else, like I'll go in to get a mop or a broom at another place, and I'll be in the line, and people will say, what are you doing here? And I'm going, I'm getting a mop, and I picked up a can of mayonnaise. Will you give me a break? And so Banks Market's awesome. They've been a big supporter of this expo for a very long time. Thank you, Banks Market.
Yes. And Miss Caitlin, this is a little kit for you to grow your own basil. It's even got little dirt pucks in there that swell up as big as this thing here. So it's kind of fun. I actually played with one the other night. I had fun with it. I hope you do too, sweetie. Thank you.
Just add water to dirt and see what you get.
We can make some good pesto with that. That'll be really good.
Hey,
Yay!
hey,
What do you say?
Make a cup of it and tell your mom it's chocolate pudding you made.
Her mom is a really, really excellent cook. I don't think she'll go for it, Bear.